Fáilteoireamh go léir a dhaoine uaisle, agus RTE a créile an searamánais comórtha seo don níos Pórtaigh, mar Hanóraigh agus gach duine eile a raibh tiúnchar tine an Stardust orthu. You're welcome to this ceremony of commemoration that's about to begin here at the Garden of Remembrance in Dublin, a state ceremony for the victims, survivors and all of those affected by the Stardust fire on the 14th of February in 1981. Tá go leor den na daoine muintsartha agus gaoltha Stardust an seo inniu, agus le chéile dóibh príomh-oifigeí an Stát agus cathair baile á chlia. In our masque, beg Uachtarán na Héireann Michael D. Higgins, Taoiseach Simon Harris, Tánaiste Micheál Martin, agus an seog fós Ordmhéara baile á chlia James Geoghegan. Also here today in the Garden of Remembrance, survivors, relatives, and those who were affected by that Stardust fire on the 14th of February 1981. And alongside them today, representing the state, will be President Michael D. Higgins, who will lay a wreath of commemoration. Taoiseach Simon Harris will deliver a speech during the ceremony, and also there will be Tánaiste Micheál Martin, political leaders and politicians from all sides of the Oireachtas, as well as the newly elected Ordmhéara baile á chlia James Geoghegan. And here too, representatives of the services who gave so much that night, including former members of the Dublin Fire Brigade who were on duty the night of the fire, here as part of the Dublin Fire Brigade's group, as well as representatives of the ambulance service. It's an emotional day for the families and survivors and all of those affected by the Stardust tragedy. 43 long and often lonely years coping with the aftermath of that dreadful night and fighting for vindication. That vindication came in the coroner's court a stone's throw away from here last April, and today's ceremony is happening as a result of that long-awaited verdict of unlawful killing. Each of the 48 who never came home will be remembered by name today. We'll hear pen portraits of each of them, and relatives, loved ones and those involved will lay floral wreaths for each of the 48 in the cruciform pool. And then President Higgins will lay a wreath on behalf of the people of Ireland in memory of them all. The names of the 48 will be a theme throughout today's ceremony. Father Joe Jones, who'll read a prayer, was parish priest in Bonnybrook for many years. He read the names of the victims at their anniversary mass many times. Roddy Doyle, in 1981 he was a young teacher in Kilbarrack, and today he'll read a reflection on the names of those 48 who are being commemorated. Is ócáid bhuachánachaí an searamánais comórtha seo do na cluine, na gaolta, na martha manórnaí, agus iad siúd go léir a raibh bansacu le tine an Stardust. Ach tá sé antáhacht do freisin, gúil an Stát a cuimhnamh gach aon íos pórtach le na hanam féin inniu. There'll be music throughout the ceremony from the North Dublin Community Gospel Choir, the Dublin Fire Brigade Band, Eddie Sherlock, Mary Byrne, Zoe Conway and Kevin Rowsome. And Christy Moore will perform his emblematic song about the Stardust victims, the 48 children who never came home. Buach fuinsa an searamánais comórtha, rééis leagadh an bhláthleas gur son muinse na Héireann le Uachtarán Michael D. Higgins, beag nóméid ciúna seán, agus an sin, Shenfer Bannacheol Ordéidín, Árán na Bhíon. The highlight of today's ceremony of commemoration will be the laying of the wreath on behalf of the people of Ireland by President Higgins. Then a moment's silence, and to conclude, the Artane Band will play the national anthem. To begin, the North Dublin Community Gospel Choir, many of whom live close to the Stardust and remember that night, with Pink's What About Us, and then Coldplay's Fix You.
you ready? It's the start of us waking up, come on. Are you ready? I'll be ready. I don't want control, I want to let go. Are you ready? I'll be ready. Now it's time to let them know we are ready. What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about us? What about all the broken happy ever afters? What about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? What about love? What about trust? What about us? 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 When you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in reverse, and the tears come streaming down your face. When you lose something you can't replace. When you love someone it goes to waste.
The North Dublin Community Gospel Choir and now Master of Ceremonies, Phelim Drew.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the Garden of Remembrance in Dublin for a ceremony of commemoration for the victims, survivors, and all those affected by the Stardust fire. Thanks very much to the North Dublin Community Gospel Choir for their wonderful opening performance. We are joined here in this special place by relatives and friends of the 48 young people who lost their lives and by survivors of that tragic night in February 1981. Today, we come together to remember and to celebrate the lives of those we lost and those affected by this tragic event. We also recognize the contribution of the first responders who worked so bravely and so selflessly to help all in their time of need. During today's commemoration, we will have music, spoken word, song, and wreath layings by family members. President Michael D. Higgins will also lay a wreath on behalf of the people of Ireland. I now invite the Taoiseach, Mr. Simon Harris, TD, to deliver a welcome address, which will be followed by Zoe Conway, who will perform Be Thou My Vision.
President, Lord Mayor, Ministers, families, ladies and gentlemen, people of Ireland, I'm honoured to welcome you all here to the Garden of Remembrance today, where we come together as a state to commemorate the victims, their survivors, the families, and all those affected by the Stardust fire. It is fitting that in this special place in our capital city, a place for reflection and recollection, that we gather to commemorate those 48 young people who went out to enjoy themselves on Valentine's Eve in 1981 and never came home. 43 years and 64 days later, the Stardust inquest delivered the truth at long last with the verdict of unlawful killing on the 18th of April. On the 23rd of April in Dáil Éireann, I delivered a state apology to the victims, survivors, and families of the Stardust tragedy. And today, 2 months later to the day, we take the next step with this state commemoration. Here, in this garden, we often come to remember fallen heroes. And I know that's what those 48 young people were to their families and to their communities. And you, the families of those who died, those who survived, those who were injured, and those who fought to save lives on that night and afterwards, became their heroes. So many people here today, and many who sadly did not live to see today, never gave up fighting for the memory of their loved ones. Today, finally, at last, your fight sees them properly commemorated by their state in recognition of their terrible loss in a national tragedy. I can think of no words more fitting for your long campaign for justice, which has culminated in this moment of a state commemoration, than the poem We Saw a Vision, a poem which is inscribed on these walls in the Garden of Remembrance. In the darkness of despair, we saw a vision. We lit the light of hope, and it was not extinguished. In the desert of discouragement, we saw a vision. We planted the tree of valor, and it blossomed. In the winter of bondage, we saw a vision. We melted the snow of lethargy, and the river of resurrection flowed from it. We sent our vision a swim like a swan on the river. The vision became a reality. Winter became summer. Bondage became freedom, and this we left to you as your inheritance. O generation of freedom, remember us, the generations of the vision. Today we commemorate the vision of the families who decided never, ever, ever would they allow truth be oppressed. You have ensured that your loved ones and the Stardust tragedy will be remembered by the generations to come. You have ensured that their names are written in the history books, just as their 48 young faces are etched on our national collective memory. Above all, what has shone through, driving your fight and your determination, is the abiding love and loyalty that you have for your daughters, your sons, your sisters, your brothers, your mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts. It is a love and loyalty for family that is both personal to you and common to us all. It is why we're here today. It's what will resonate with each and every person in Ireland as you lay wreaths in their memories today in this garden. While this ceremony is one of solemn reflection, it's also a testament to love and to fidelity. You, the families, should be so proud of this commemoration. It is your commemoration. We are here because of you. It has been designed to honour those people that you loved and that you lost in the most awful of circumstances. Their names will never be forgotten because of you, and you can be proud that due to your perseverance, your resilience, and above all, your love, that we as a nation and as a state finally, publicly, commemorate them with you today. Marin Gra de Jo. Love lives forever. Gurmila Magav.
Zoe Conway is a violinist trained in both classical music and traditional fiddle playing. She'll be playing a number of traditional songs as well during each of the sets of Victims' Pen Portraits.
Thank you, Taoiseach and Zoe. We will now have the first of 5 wreath-laying ceremonies by members of the families that lost loved ones on that tragic Valentine's night. As an extract from the pen portraits are read, a family member will lay a wreath in the cruciform pool for their loved one, accompanied by music from violinist Zoe Conway. After the first set of wreath layings, uilleann piper Kevin Rowsome will perform the parting glass, followed by Father Joe Jones, formerly of Bonnybrook Parish, who will then lead us in prayer. I invite Carol Barrett, who will read extracts from pen portraits of 10 of the young people who lost their lives.
Michael Barrett, who was working that night as an assistant DJ. He was wise beyond his years and had an infectious laugh. He was 17 years old. Richard Bennett, who loved horses and took on the role of breadwinner for his family, described as an angel in disguise. He was 17. Carol Bissett, a singer in the choir and a girl guide, quiet in her ways, much loved by all. She was 18. Jimmy Buckley, the life of every party, who loved hurling and had won a competition for his Elvis impression. Father figure, brother, hero. He was 23. Paula Byrne, always the peacemaker. She loved to draw and was the epitome of kindness. She was 19. Caroline Carey, a talented Irish dancer who took up disco dancing, a Dublin City Council clerical officer who had recently found out that she was going to be a mother. This baby was the 49th victim of the Stardust tragedy. Caroline was 17. John Colgan, Johnny, always upbeat. He lit up every room and performed the Hucklebuck as his party piece. He was going to be an uncle. He was 21. Jacqueline Croker, a heart of gold, who brought music into her family's lives on her red record player and used her wages to dress and treat her brothers and sisters. She was 18. Liam Dunn, training to be a butcher, which he loved, with a passion for music. He was a loving boy with many friends. He was 18. Michael Farrell, his family's bundle of joy. He worked at Cadbury, a dapper young man who always tried to look his best. He was a deep thinker and diarist. He was 26.
Next, we'll hear from Father Joe Jones reading a prayer. He got to know the Stardust families in his 9 years as parish priest in Bonnybrook.
Loving God, we are here today, struggling for words to express our feelings, lost for words to reflect our deep sorrow, as we remember those whose lives were cut short, the 48 young people who never came home. Their names are written forever in our hearts, never to be forgotten. Hold them in your loving care. Bless those who mourn the lives of these young people. Give them healing and the comfort of your love, that they may face each day with hope and certain that nothing can take from the richness of the gift of each life remembered today. We remember also those who have died and whose lives were imprinted with grief and pain as they fought hard for justice over the years. Their efforts were not in vain. We gather all of them in one great hug of compassion and consolation. May they rest in your eternal peace. We salute the dedication and the determination of all who labored against great difficulties and obstructions in their pursuit of truth. May the light of their example empower us to speak against injustice wherever we find it. May our community grow stronger in our efforts to promote peace and love. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
And one of those Father Jones remembering today, the late Christine Keegan, whom he buried. She told him she would never give up on her fight for justice.
Thank you, Father Joe, Kevin, Carol and Zoe. We will now have the second wreath-laying ceremony. Roddy Doyle will then join us and recite a reflection which he wrote especially for this commemoration. This will be followed by Mary Byrne, who will perform This Is the Moment. I now invite Antoinette Keegan to read extracts from pen portraits of 11 of the young people who lost their lives.
Good afternoon, everybody. Michael French, Horsey, an auto electrician and the rock of his family, a role model who worked hard to share his wages and thought of everyone before himself. He was 18. David Flood, a rocker at heart who loved the guitar and was known for his Jagger swagger. He never missed a day of work and had all of his life's possibilities before him. He was 18. Thelma Fraser, a gentle and kind, loved Friday nights and disco moves, remembered by her brothers and sisters for her treats and hugs and kisses. She was 20. Josephine Glenn, quiet and gentle, always smiling and happy, a second mum to her brothers and sisters who left school to help support her family. She was 16. Michael Griffiths, happy, outgoing, with a great work ethic and a generous nature. He loved family occasions and Christmas and could always be heard laughing, singing, playing music. He was 18. Robert Tillich, Bobby, outgoing and hardworking. He loved football and boxing and was very close to his late brother Bill. He was 20. Brian Hobbs, his sister was known as his mammy Pat. He was academically inclined and excelled at Catering College, winning a gold medal for Ireland in competition. He was ambitious, he was going places. He was 21. Eugene Huey Hogan, a skilled carpenter, a sharp dresser with a beautiful voice which could hit the high notes, a loving, caring father. He was 24. Morta Kavanagh, caring, kind and good-natured. He was a heating insulator and looked after his father, who loved the Dubs and Manchester United. He was 27. Martina Keegan, not just a daughter and sister, but a best friend and confidant. She dreamed of being a model and was studious and hardworking. She was 16. Mary Keegan, beautiful inside and out, shy at heart, but very fun-loving and sociable. A teacher to her younger siblings. She excelled at school and work. She was 19. While we remember the 48 victims here today, I'd like to remember my mother and father, John and Christine Keegan, who both fought so hard, and it's a sad day they're not here today, along with Eugene Kelly and Charlie Bird.
Charlie Bird, who had campaigned so long with the Stardust family, is remembered today.
A big part of writing any story is choosing names for the characters. When I started writing more than 40 years ago, I got my names from the phone book. That was where I found Jimmy Rabbit. There was half a column of rabbits in the Dublin area book. It's where I discovered George Burgess from The Snapper. And I've since met several men called George Burgess who made it clear to me that they really wished I hadn't. Paula Spencer from the television series Family, she came out of the phone book too. But the phone book is long gone, and after writing for so long, finding the right names for new characters has become increasingly difficult. A few months ago, I started to write a short story about 5 old friends sitting around a kitchen table, as one of them tells a story about how every Saturday when he was small, his father brought him to a pub, and while he drank his bottle of Coke, his father shouted at the telly as he watched his horse losing. The other men crumpled their betting slips and threw them on the floor. But this man's dad handed him his docket and said, the same thing every week, don't let your mother see that. I wanted the characters to be men and women from the north side of Dublin, born in the early 60s, people who grew up together, went to school together, got into trouble together, went to gigs together, went dancing together, and in the case of 4 of them, married one another. But I couldn't think of names for them, names that made me confident enough to get going. Then I thought of something. I'd started writing the story a few days after the Stardust inquest verdict had been announced. So I looked again at the names of the 48 people who died that night. I started to write the names into a notebook on my desk. I made a list of them, just the first names, all 48. Writing them out, I felt desperately sad and angry. But there was something else. I knew in that list I had what I needed. They were the names of people I grew up with. They were the same names as the teenagers I taught in Kilbarrack when I was a young teacher in 1981. They were names I could trust. I knew I'd be in good hands. Names aren't labels, they are acts of love. They have a magic about them. It's hard to determine sometimes which came first, the name or the personality. We all know Jimmys who couldn't be called anything else. The name becomes the smile, the laugh, the trouble, the charm, the fun, the fury, the brilliance, the whole package, the life. Names live in the memory, in the family, the community, in the stories we pass around, in the names we pass on. Those 48 names will live because you made sure that they will live and will continue to live and will not be forgotten or discarded or hidden. Thank you. I'm going to read a very short extract from the story. Mick didn't know where he'd been when he got into the taxi, but he could remember that Chelsea were beating Aston Villa 3-1 on his way home. He mentioned that to the people he was telling the story to now. They burst out laughing, all of them. He can name the Chelsea team that won the FA Cup in 1971. 1970, Mick corrected his wife. Michael, said Carol, I apologise. He can name the whole team, jersey numbers and all, despite his advancing years. Ah, feck off now, love. But he has to think before he can name his own grandchildren. That's not true. Go on so, said Carol. How many have we? 5. Well, that's a start in anyways. The other people in the room, Marcella, Marie and John, knew there was no edge to any of this. They knew it wasn't the continuation of a fight that Mick and Carol had been having before they'd walked up the path and rung the bell. They'd grown up with this. They'd known one another since they were teenagers. They'd been there when Mick and Carol had met. They'd been there half an hour later when Mick and Carol had their first row. They'd been in the church when Carol answered the priest's query as to whether she'd take Michael as her lawfully wedded husband with, I suppose so. They knew that Mick had married Carol's sense of humour. Abby, he started. Noah. Michael. How many is that? 3. Grace and Emma. Hannah. Is it not Emma? Jesus, all these years I've been calling her Emma. She was born last month, ye chancer. Thank you.
On our own. just a moment, the greatest moment. All them,
Thank you, Mary and Kaylee Cullinan. Thank you, Roddy, Zoe, and Antoinette. We will now have the third wreath-laying ceremony. The Dublin Fire Brigade Band will then perform Amazing Grace. I invite Pat Dunn, who will read extracts from pen portraits of 9 of the young people who lost their lives.
Robert Kelly, nicknamed Spiky for his hairstyle. He worked on the B&I boats and loved it. He was a lover of music and embroidery. He was 17. Mary Kennedy, warm, caring, lively, and fiercely protected. Dancing as soon as she could walk, her personality and style were as bright as her smile. She was 17. Mary Kenny, popular, kind, and funny, passionate about fashion and dancing, and a fan of Leeds United. She had just turned 19. Margaret Kiernan, a friend to all, who loved sport and socialising, loved to sing Roxanne, and who dreamt of a happy future in a house next door to her best friend Deirdre. And she was 18. Sandra Lawless, happy, kind, funny, selfless, a Girl Guide leader and a swimmer who won awards for life-saving. She loved hiking and camping in the Dublin mountains, and she was 18. Francis Lawler, a normie man with a love of style. He had great leadership skills and never liked to leave his beautiful baby Lisa. He was 25. Maureen Lawler, a loving and devoted mother to Lisa, full of dreams for the future. She shared an interest in fashion with her husband Francis, was always immaculately dressed. And she was 26. Paula Lewis. She was her mother's right-hand woman and her father's pride and joy. She was a second mother to her siblings and her little sister's roommate. And she was 19. Eamon Loughlin, a protector of his brothers and sisters, who remembers crossbars on his racer, a car enthusiast, a music lover with a deep laugh, and he was 18.
The Dublin Fire Brigade Band. Their service will never forget Valentine's Night 1981.
That was wonderful. Thank you to the Dublin Fire Brigade Band, the Zoe and Pat. We now have the fourth wreath-laying ceremony. I invite Selena McDermott, who will read extracts from pen portraits of 10 of the young people who lost their lives.
Donna Mahon, a lovely person who loved her job working in a newsagent, meeting people and being part of the community, and had plans to go to Santa Ponsa for her 18th birthday. She was 17. Helena Mangan, kind, caring, loving, brave and strong. Her daughter Samantha was the centre of her life. She loved to dance. She was 22. George McDermott, a gentle music lover with a cheeky grin. He loved a bop and playing cards with his pals. He was 18. Marcella McDermott, happy, singing and dancing, with the most gentle and kind nature, especially with children. She was 16. William McDermott, Willie, a gentle giant with a beautiful smile. Soft-voiced, witty, caring and kind. He loved the weekend. He loved the Dubliners and being on Hill 16. He was 22. Julie MacDonald, caring, helpful and thoughtful, a hard worker and a provider. She loved football, coached a local team and was mad for Elvis. She was 20. Teresa MacDonald, the focal point of her family. She was brave, stood up for what she believed and loved all animals. She was 16. Gerard McGrath, independent and full of energy, talented with his hands as a dapper music lover, and had a passion for the natural world and a love of birds. He was 21. Caroline McHugh, an avid reader, Irish dancer and swimmer, and a member of the local CB Radio Club, who did well in school and work. She was 17. James Miller, a sailor who had travelled the world, so happy to be engaged to be married and ready to settle down and raise a family. He was 20.
Thank you, Selena and Zoe. I would now like to invite Christy Moore, who will perform They Never Came Home.
St. Valentine's Day comes around once a year. All our thoughts turn to love as the time it draws near. Sweethearts and darlings, husbands and wives, pledge love and devotion for the rest of their lives. As day turns to evening, soon night time does fall. Young people preparing for the Valentine's ball. As the night fills with laughter, some families mourn the 48 children that never came home. Down to the Stardust they made their way. The bouncers stood back as they lined up to pay. The records were spinning, there was dancing as well. How the fire started, no one can tell. In a matter of seconds, confusion did reign. The room was in darkness, fire exits were chained. Firefighters wept, and they could not hide their sorrow and anger for those still inside. Let us remember the suffering and pain, the survivors and the victims of the fire in Artane. Mothers and fathers forever to mourn the 48 children that never came home. And all round the city the bad news it spread. There's a fire in the Stardust, there's 48 downed. Hundreds of children are injured and maimed. All because the fire exits were chained. Our leaders were shocked, grim statements were made. They shed tears as the coffins were laid. But the families were abandoned year after year. It seems like our leaders shed crocodile tears. Millions paid out on legal fees, and a fortune to the owner, Butterley. In Poppentry, Coolock, Bonnybrook and Artane, the survivors were abandoned time and again. Days turned to weeks, and the weeks turned to years. Our laws favor the rich, or so it appears. A mother still waits for her kids to come home. Injustice breeds anger, and that's what was done. Let us remember the suffering and pain, the survivors and the victims of the fire in Artane. Mothers and fathers forever to mourn, and the 48 children that never came home.
For that song, Christy Moore was found in contempt of court. For decades, a song not played publicly, sung here today for the 48 who never came home.
Thank you, Christy Moore. We now have the final wreath-laying ceremony. This will be followed by a performance by Eddie Sherlock. I invite Maurice McHugh, who will read extracts from pen portraits of 8 of the young people who lost their lives.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have a feeling that we have the presence of the 48 victims here today. Susan Morgan, a tomboy who loved football and walks and Dublin. She was bubbly, funny, full of life. She was 19 years of age. David Morton, football mad and nicknamed Chesty, for preferring to receive the ball there than have it mess up his hair. He was mischievous, charismatic and independent, with big dreams for the future. He was 19 years of age. Kathleen Muldoon, good-natured and thoughtful. She wanted to be a nurse and cared for all those around her. She was 19 years of age. George O'Connor, a gentle homebody with a creative spirit who loved science fiction. He was attending his first dance. He was aged 17 years of age. Brendan O'Mara, a talented Irish dancer and sportsman. He would help anyone out in any way he could and never had a hair out of place. He was 23 years of age. John Stout, sensitive and gentle. An Elvis fan who liked snooker. He planned to become a painter and decorator to contribute to the family's household he loved. He was 18 years of age. Margaret Thornton, a lover of fashion and music, skilled in dressmaking and tailoring. She loved the pictures, concerts, and especially discos. She was 19 years of age. Paul Wade, a people person, good at chatting, who made friends easily. Someone you simply couldn't stay mad at. He was 17 years of age. Thank you.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high. Yeah, don't be afraid of the guy at the end.
The Hillsborough family's anthem, now a Stardust family's anthem. And now we'll see two of the relatives who laid wreaths for their loved ones coming forward to hand the official wreaths
Eddie.
to President Higgins. Samantha
And
Curran, just 4
Morris
years old when her
and
mother,
Zoe.
Helena Mangan, never came home. Lisa Lawler, just 17 months old when both her parents, 23-year-old Maureen,
The President will
25-year-old
now
Francis,
lay
lost their
a
lives.
wreath on behalf of the people of Ireland. And then we will observe some moments' silence, which will be brought to a conclusion by the beat of a drum, after which a performance of the national anthem will conclude today's ceremony.
Tugam Quiru Danukdron in Ish, Flaska Lagan, her Kian Wincher na Heron. I now invite the President to lay a wreath on behalf of the people of Ireland.
And that concludes this ceremony of commemoration for the victims, survivors and those affected by the Stardust fire. A night in 1981 when the 48 victims named here today died. Unlawful killings, the verdict of the coroner's court 43 years later. So sin Jera an Teramornish Camorhasha, an Gordian Huivnachan, ag Yarnas Parnell, an Stát ag Anam Nu agus ag Tuirts Anora, de gach aine den a daha de hocht, a forbás sa tinna Stardust. Níl rá an ish ón gréile specialta seo, ach slán agus bannach di ormh go léir.